How are you doing? Yeah, it's good to see you. Karibuni sana. My name is Duncan, as has already been said. Yeah, so like I had said before, yesterday was my our wedding anniversary, and it's been 1 year. It's been 1 year, but it has gone so quickly. But even if it has gone so quickly, eh, there's been quite a number of things, and I'll be sharing a number of those in a few. Yeah, and I'm glad. I'm glad. Yesterday, I was reflecting about how the last 1 year has been, and I'll get to it, but I can tell you God is real. Yeah, He's real. He's real. Yeah, so I'm here to talk about discipleship. I should probably mention that I'm also a teacher because it's going to be relevant somewhere along the way. Yeah, I teach somewhere in Muranga. It's called 𝐒𝐞𝐫𝐢𝐞𝐬. There is a school called 𝐁𝐨𝐨𝐤. It has around 300 students. In junior secondary, where I'm stationed, we have around 85 students. And grade 9, they are around 22. Grade 8, they are around 31. No, 32. Then grade 7, which I'm the class teacher, they are 31. Yes. And since I went there, it's been it's maybe a year and a half. And one of the things I've been trying to do is do CU, Christian Union, but now the primary school version. I'll get to that. But it's tricky. Well, yeah, so I'm here to talk about discipleship. So the short title is 5 lessons about discipleship from the book of Exodus. And the long title is 5 things or 5 lessons that I have picked from the book of Exodus that are important for me, but also for God's people. So that by the end of the day, hautaenda nyumbani kama unajua a bit of my story without seeing any relevance. Yeah, so I'm going to be mixing the two of them together. And because I know, teachers, we talk a lot. Na huwa tunapiga ma diversions a lot. So I tried to write. In fact, I think I completed like 2 weeks ago. Nikafunga, nikasema siongezi tena because every day I was feeling like, I think I should continue. Yeah, and I think I write a lot. And the problem is, of course, if you continue writing, utapoteza watu. Yeah, so you have to just narrow down and go deep in a few specific things. Yeah, and before I get to the 5 things, I think it's important maybe to, as a way of introduction, maybe mention a few things about discipleship so that now we can get into discipleship. And there's no better place to start than in Explore, because Explore, yeah? Yeah, I am a facilitator and I love the modules. And according to the 3rd edition of Explore Module 1, which is called Explore the Bible, that is on page 80. This is how it defines a disciple. A disciple is someone who studied his rabbis or teachers' teaching and life. A disciple is someone who studied a rabbi's or a teacher's way of life. So basically, we have somebody who is a teacher, not like me. I mean, most likely a religious teacher, a spiritual teacher. And then there are people who come around that person and they learn from him. And of course, we see that a lot in the Bible. Yeah, so this studying, I don't even know. We study books. As a teacher, we study books, not people. So how do you study a person? How do you study a man or a woman? So the studying here is it's indicating, it's implying knowing somebody to emulate and become like them. So that is the implication. So you are learning them so that you can become like them. That is a disciple. And Jesus commanded his disciple to disciple others. And this is unique in that he was inviting them to do what he had done with them. So quickly, let's go to Mark 3, verse 13 and 14. Yeah, so a disciple, somebody who is studying another person. And Jesus, he did this. So in Mark 3, he says, and he went on the mountain and called to him. So the he is Jesus. He went to the mountain and called to him those whom he desired, and they came to him. Verse 14. And he appointed 12, whom he also named apostles, so that they might be with him, and he might send them out to preach. So he appointed 12 for two things. Number one, so that they may be, let's read together, so that they might be with him. And then after they have been with him, he might send them out to preach. And then from chapter 3, 4, 5, we see Jesus doing that, especially in Mark. So he has called them, he is teaching them, he is teaching the people, and these guys are following him. When you read the Gospels, there's evidence that they were, for example, there's the mention of Jesus and the disciples going to Peter's place. And he is with the disciples. There's so many mentions, many places where it's mentioned that Jesus and the disciples, they went from this place to that place. So we see there's that aspect of discipleship, which is about being together. So the teacher and the students who are studying, the studying has to happen. When you are studying a book, what do? You take the book, you spend some time with it. So when you are studying a person, what do you think you're going to be doing? Yes, you spend some time with that person. And so that is what Jesus did with the disciples. And now we can go to chapter 6, verse 7. So he has been with them for a time. He has been with them. He has been walking with them. They have been seeing. For example, in the Gospel of Matthew, there are places where Jesus turns to the disciples and teaches them. So it is in the context where he is teaching, but in some places, he's also teaching the disciples themselves so that they can know. So in Mark, the previous chapters, he's teaching, he is using several parables. And so when they hear how he is teaching, then they can do the second part, which is so that now they can also go and preach, because they have heard their rabbi. They have listened to him. They have been studying. They have been studying how he teaches. So in Mark 6, verse 7, and he called the 12 and began to send them out two by two and gave them authority over the unclean spirits. And of course, if you read down, you see that they did that. They went, they taught the message of repentance, which Jesus had been teaching. And so here we see that Jesus, he gathered around him a small group of disciples. Here it's mentioned it's 12. I think either in Matthew or Luke, there's somewhere where he also sends 72. Again, two by two. So it's like the group keeps increasing. People are still gathering around, learning, studying that man. And we also see this with Paul. For example, in 2 Timothy 2:2. I still remember in high school, our CU patron, she used to use this verse especially when one generation of officials, mnajua officials, was you? So when one generation of officials imeenda and it's handing over to another one, and then he will read this for us, and she would say, and what you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, I now entrust to you. I entrust to faith. So this is Paul speaking to Timothy. So what you have heard from me in the presence of many others, so I choose you. Entrust it to faithful men who will also be able to teach others. So we see a chain, a generation of chains here. So it's one generation. So there is Paul, and then there is, so Paul teaches Timothy, and then Timothy teaches other men, and then those men teach. And so I think there is a pattern that is coming out here. So if we if we follow closely the story of the Bible, we see that there are two, to use the jargon of gospel life, intricately intertwined dynamics of discipleship. Two of them. One, it incorporates our own journey in the Lord as we follow him until we fully attain his image. And in the words of Paul, until we attain the fullness of the stature of the measure of Christ. So the number one dynamic, the number one side of discipleship is us, our journey with the Lord. We ourselves, we study him because we are his disciples, because we are following him. That is the first dynamic, us. But the story does not end there. If we just stop there, we will have forgotten the other side of the coin. And the other side of the coin is it incorporates our walking with others to help them grow into Christ. So when we think about discipleship, especially from the pages of the Bible, on one hand, it's about us and our walk with God. But then on the other hand, there is us walking with others, leading them to Jesus. And like Paul said, that is a goal, getting there. You follow me as I follow Christ. That is literally that. So that is somebody who is telling me, so I'm going to Christ, come, we go together. And that is what Matthew, that very famous verse, the Great Commission, that is what it is about. And so here we see that discipleship is like a two-edged sword. So it is cutting inside as we are being transformed, but it's also cutting outside as we are helping others become transformed. So it must always be both and not one. And I think in church history, whenever people emphasize one over the other, there's always trouble. There's always trouble. So it has to be a balance of both. And there's nobody who sees it better than a guy who is called 𝐄𝐸𝐞𝐫𝐢𝐞𝐬. The name is important. Because 𝐂𝐸𝐞𝐫 is the author of one of the chapter, the second chapter, of a book that we did in Center for Missional Theology. The book is called Spirituality of the Saints, Casting a New Vision for the Missional Church. 𝐂𝐸𝐞𝐫 explores Moses as a political leader. And this is what he says. As is the double bind of leadership, Moses is being formed. Number one. So Moses himself being formed. Even while he is under God, helping form the people of God. So on one hand, we have Moses, and God is forming him. God is forming him. But then on the other hand, there is God's people who are being formed. God is interested in transforming his family to look like him. And he is going to use a man. That man is Moses. So what we have here is we have two formations, so to say, happening. We have Moses and his discipleship. God is discipling him. But then on the other hand, God is discipling Israel through Moses. But why do these people need discipling? And so we see that liberation is one thing, formation is another. So these guys they are saved from slavery, as we have seen in the series of Exodus. And it becomes apparent that the Israelites will need to undergo a long period of formation to become the people of God. They are desperate to be free from Pharaoh's oppression. They are desperate. And we can understand why. But becoming holy and trusting Yahweh is another thing altogether. So, wanataka kuwa saved. They don't. That is why they were crying. That is why they were mourning. That is why they were groaning. And God had. But the story does not end with a physical deliverance because they need to look like the people of God. And so here we see that their time in the wilderness exposes their superficial commitment to Yahweh and their reluctance to face the hardships involved in becoming his people. So what we have here is people who receive the status of God's family. And God is holy. So when he calls the people, they need to look like him. They attain the status, but they don't look like God's people. They don't. And also that is our status usually. When we receive Jesus, so we become the righteousness of God, which was upon Jesus, but we don't look like that. We don't look like that. Yeah, this one of the sermons that Pastor Sam did, and he was explaining about that and using the term positional righteousness. So we attain a position. So we attain a status. We attain a status that makes us look. So before God, we are holy. But in reality, we are not. So what is going to happen is we first get the status, and then God does the work of forming, the work of transforming us, so that we can journey there where we are going to look like God. And that is discipleship. That is discipleship. And yes, so we are going to go through the book of Exodus, not the whole of it, just around the first 5 chapters, and see some of the lessons that we can learn about this thing that we are calling discipleship. And the first one you are going to see in chapter 1. If you are one of those who writes titles and notes and you want to be organized, I have tried. So there is the first point. We need a strategy for defeating the devil. We need a strategy for defeating the devil. We need a strategy. Let's go through Exodus 1 from verse 8 and see a few things from there. So let's read together. Now there arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, "Behold, the people of Israel are too many and too mighty for us. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply. And if war breaks out, they join our enemies and fight against us and escape from the land." Therefore, they sent taskmasters over them to afflict them with heavy burdens. They built for Pharaoh store cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied, and the more they spread abroad. And the Egyptians were in dread of the people of Israel. So the rulers made the people of Israel work as slaves, and made their lives bitter with hard service in mortar and brick, and in all kinds of work in the field. In all their work, they ruthlessly made them work as slaves. Then the king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, one of whom was named Shiphrah and the other Puah, "When you serve as midwife to the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stool, if it is a son, you shall kill him. But if it is a daughter, she shall live. Yes, she shall live. Sorry." But the midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but let the male children live. So the king of Egypt called the midwives and said to them, "Why have you done this and let the male children live?" The midwives said to Pharaoh, "Because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for they are vigorous in giving birth, and they give birth before the midwife comes to them." So God dealt with them well. So God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and grew very strong. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families. Then Pharaoh commanded all his people, "Every son that is born to the Hebrews, you shall cast into the Nile, but you shall let every daughter live." Yeah, so Exodus starts with a great oppression of God's people. We have a new Pharaoh who is seeking to control the multiplication of the children of Israel. And for him to control, he comes up with a strategy, a multi-level control protocol. with fail-safe and contingencies plan. You know, when you are watching movies, kuna kitu inaitangwa fail-safe contingency plan. Yani, it doesn't matter the outcome. Kuna contingency plan. So nothing can go wrong. You know, where things zimepangwa mpaka these. Yani, what the goal must be achieved. The goal must be achieved. It doesn't matter. So this guy, Pharaoh, I may develop backup plans. These people, we have to control them. We have to control them. And he comes up with several plans. The first one, we see it in verse 10. Deal shrewdly. You know, Jesus tells us to deal to be to be shrewd. And that name, that word. So they are to be shrewd in oppressing the people. So imagine there is a crisis meeting, a national crisis meeting. Kuna Pharaoh hapo, the god of the people. There is the cabinet secretary of internal affairs, another one of, foreign affairs. There is another one of domestic affairs. There is the cabinet secretary of, security. Yes, labor, all of them wako hapo. They have had a meeting together with their CSs, everyone. No, the PSs, all of them are there. And then the minutes are being read somewhere. The minutes of the reports, they hear crisis management committee. They would read something like this. It was unanimously agreed by members present that Israelites must be dealt with shrewdly. So what that means is that in every place that you are going to be, whichever ministry you are going to seek help from, they are going to be dealing with you shrewdly. You are Hebrew? Okay. They remember the term is, the national protocol is shrewd. So umeenda kwa, maybe unataka kuchukua ID. You just think. Unatumwa from sijui Sharia House, unaenda Harambe House, unaenda, all of them. Wanakuzungusha hivyo. A whole day you spend in Nairobi. You are wandering from one office to the other. 10 hours. You cannot show what you have been doing. The only thing you are sure is, you have no idea who is supposed to help you to get the ID. Hauna clue. But you have been there. Na hujakuwa ukikaa chini. You have talked to people. Lakini wakikuona tu hivyo, shrewd. That is the word that they remember. We need to deal with them shrewdly. And then the report does not stop there. Verse 11. The first plan, top layer, hard labor. So they are to build storehouses. So the first crisis meeting, they agree. We are going to deal with them shrewdly. And then on top of that, hard labor. In verse 11. But these guys continue multiplying. And so the Egyptians hate them. They hate them. And so we go to verse 14. The third strategy. Sasa tuko the layer yenye iko after top layer hapo chini. Rigorous hard labor. And this is different because so they made their lives bitter with hard service in mortar and brick and in all kinds of work in the field. So it is not just, it's not just bricks, because I think most of the time you usually think ni kutengeneza tu bricks. It's also with every other kinds of work of the field. So it means that kama uko na neighbor ambaye ni Israelite na utaki kwenda kulima shamba yako, unamwamkia asubuhi, kuna kazi haulipwi haraka sana. Yes. Kanjo hawataki kufanya kazi because there are people for that. And the service is ruthless. And that does not work. So the fourth strategy, kill the firstborns during birth. Bado tunaendelea. So as you can imagine, I don't know how many crisis meetings have been called by now. Mpaka they agree. Okay, so what you are going to do, because this thing haipunguki, we are going to kill the firstborns. And then still that does not work. So we go to number 5. We get a national kill order. You see a boy, so the people who are supposed to kill the boys, they refuse. And so this guy thinks, okay, nyinyi hamnijui. And so he issues a national kill order. Yeah, 207 crashes. I don't think they come that close. I don't think they come that close. Yani every single boy you see, he's a Hebrew. That's it. You know, this is where faith. Unajua ile nini ya graph imechorwa. Literally. Hapa imechorwa. You are born and you are a Hebrew boy. That's it for you. That's it for you. And Moses comes. So the boys have been so the trend have been there for the last around, okay, I don't know how many years. At least we know it's at least 80. Because Moses goes back to Pharaoh akiwa 80. A whole 80 years. Just think about that. How many pharaohs are those? From the grandfather to the father and now the pharaoh. And the thing has been there. So wewe unajuanga tu. I don't even know how are these people surviving. And when Moses comes and he wants the people to be released, well, double work. Yani kuna, so like I was saying, backup. That is a strategy. And I tell you the truth, that is the devil in our world today. That is how armed he is to work against us, to work against our discipleship. He has his arsenal of weapons. Yeah. Yeah, and just to share a bit of my story. Some of you will know that I've been struggling with health for quite some time. I still remember December 23 last year. It was so painful. My legs, from the knee downwards, I couldn't move. At around 7 p.m., you know, actually I started, I asked Marianne, by then she was she was my wife. We were around 6 or so months old. Na nikamwambia aniwekee mkoba. Hata niko na hiyo bag hapa. Aniwekee nguo because ninaona nikienda hospitali nitaenda kulazwa. Because ninaona like, nah, there is no way I can come back home today. Because the pain is so, I can't move my legs. And then it's just my legs. It's from the knees kwenda chini. The rest of the body is very okay. I can eat, I can do whatever with the hands. My chest is okay, my head is okay. But the legs, kumove tu hivi kidogo, takes me a minute of intense pain. And so we go to the hospital, level 6. We meet a doctor during the night, some tests, ananiambia maybe niko na pneumonia. The next day we go do further tests. I meet another doctor. Yeah. So the first one alikuwa ameniambia usiku, alikuwa ameniambia sijui my blood infection. Huyo mchana ananiambia pneumonia. I'm like, okay. Who am I supposed to trust? Yeah, and since then I've seen so many doctors and most of the time they don't agree. There's one doctor who told me to go to see a physician. Nikienda kwa physician ananiuliza kama niko na stress. And okay, yeah, but come on. I've been more stressed. Yeah, naambiwa sijui it's possible. There's another time I was dealing with another problem in a headache, constant headache. So moja ananiambia I have a certain type of headache. Naenda kwa the specialist mwenye amenituma, and then that specialist is like, there is no way you have that. Because the primary symptom is not there. This year, I went to see an orthopedic. Yoni daktari wa bones, by the way. Ni school fees tu mtalipa kidogo. Yeah, and the orthopedic is like, your immunity is kind of attacking you. Probably. And that was it. Daktari anatumia probably. Daktari specialist ametumia the word, this is what you are probably dealing with. The person, so nimetoka kwa daktari huyu nikakuja kwa huyu mwenye ako hapa juu with all hopes. Huyu atanielezea ni nini mbaya na mimi. And the doctor is saying probably. And then anaanza kuniambia historia vile ninaweza kunywa maji yenye nimechemsha a bark of a certain tree. So tumetoka now in Western medicine. Tumeenda wapi? Tuko African medicine. Specialist. Don't forget that. Specialist. Yeah, and that was it for me. That was it for me. Nikaona by the way, hapa yeah, hapa niko peke yangu. Sasa hiyo unatoka ukifikiria today is the day. Because the body is hurting. So you are going to the doctor thinking, okay, today is the day. Huyu daktari atajua ni nini mbaya. Then unaenda kusikia probably. Yeah, and I've in all these instances, every time I go to the hospital and I'm trying to kuelezea daktari, and then to some extent they don't get. Because somebody is still going to the issues. No, kuna stress by the way. And I'm like, so do you think I would want to feel pain? So if I knew that, okay, how does your head make you feel pain? How does your head make you feel pain? How does your thinking make you feel pain? Most of the times when I stand in class, I'll be feeling pain, especially after studying for around 2 hours. So that by the time inafika 10, hey, every minute I spend standing, it's agonizing. Na huko chini, nasikia kama ninadungwa. And in all this, there's still the financial aspect about it. I have a wife. She's unemployed. I have just started working. So pesa iko bado sijapanda nini. Pesa iko hapa hivi. And then on top of that, there is the Ministry of Education. We have around 17 documents you're supposed to prepare. 17. So that I can go and teach. Some of them before, others after. 17. And at that time, I have like, ikienda sana, 2 free lessons. That's 80 minutes per day. 17 documents. And then, of course, I'm dealing with several hard nuts, like in grade 9. I'm sorry to say, but vichwa ngumu. Kai. Yeah, so by the time I'm coming to the house, I am so exhausted. I'm so exhausted. And for a time there, I think I kind of forgot. There's more. I'm not here to just wake up, go to work, come back to the house, eat, sleep, wake up, go to work, get tired, come back home, eat, sleep, and rest. There's more. I'm here to do more. Yeah, and I think I forgot that. For a time. I was distracted. I don't know whether the sickness has been from God or from the devil. I don't know. I can't know. Probably not until 20 binguni. I don't even know how long it's going to be there. But there is work to do. And so that means that I cannot remain agoigoi. Niko tu hapo. Feeling sorry for myself. Because there is explore to do. There is children to teach. And not just teach, but mentor. Bring God's word to them. Even when I'm feeling that pain. So I have to wake up and be mentally prepared that we are doing this. Na God akona mimi. Because that is the work I've been called for. There are sermons to edit. There is a group, there's a few people to pastor. And that means that I have to wake up. And when I go and do my work, niende nikijua by the day is not the end of it. So nikifunza kazi yangu haijaisha. Bado kuna kazi ingine. And what this has helped me that entire period, it is to have my eyes focused on Jesus. So I will keep praying again and again. Not because I'm thinking that God has not heard my prayer. No. But because he values persistence. That is what Jesus taught in Luke. He values that. So I'll pray today and I'll pray again tomorrow. No, without feeling that hata kikosa kuniponya ni sawa. No, I fully believe that you are able to heal me. And so I'm waiting for that. But at the same time, I'm also ready. God, you are with me. You have given me work. You have given me breath today. So nitaenda nifanye kenye nafaa kufanya as if it's my last day. Because he has given me the strength to do that. And believe me, that has not come easily. It has taken time for me to theologize about how I'm going to survive through my pain, through the suffering that I'm going through. Because at the end of the day, why should I go to school and teach? Why? And I'm in pain. Why should I continue? I have to get my theology right. I have to get my theology right of why that needs to happen. Yeah, so for me, it has been pain and suffering that distracted me for a while. And I was sharing that sometime with Daniel. For a time, I abandoned fellowship and, fellowship with brothers here in church. Because I'm feeling there is too much pain, so my plate is full. So I don't have time to check on my brothers and my sisters and ask what is happening in your life and all that. Yeah, but for you, I don't know what it could be. But I have a few things to help you think through. And I can see that my time is almost up. Na bado niko point 1. But I knew that it would take some time. So the devil has an arsenal of weapons to ruin our salvation. It could be social media. Hiyo ni number 1. So we live in a day of Instagram models and they give us pressure. Hey, pressure. Kai. They give us psychological pressure to have a money-oriented perspective, while the Bible calls and warns against that. The social media that we have today, it is encouraging materialism. You are feeling sad kidogo tu hivo? Credit card. Kwa mall. Go and fill the trolley and you'll be happy. But what do you do when you don't have the money? So these views, they contradict Jesus. They contradict our master, our teacher, the one whom we are learning from and what he teaches. They call us to a life of possessiveness. And that is not what Jesus calls us to do. The journey that Jesus asked us, the journey, the discipleship, the walk of the cross, it is not about possessiveness. It is really not about that. We live in a day where everybody is being called to show a fake life. And that's lying, by the way. That's lying. So lying blatantly in the guise of becoming a celeb and influencing others, but in a fake life. You can't follow Jesus and also lie on camera. Even if it's online, it's a lie. It's a lie. There's something wrong with that discipleship. But for you, maybe the problem is not social media. You have that in control, and it's okay. Because it could be soul draining work. That leaves little time for spiritual disciplines, like fellowship. For example, coming to church on Sunday, joining the Wednesday prayers, reading your Bible, ukiwa peke yako, having time of prayer and reflection, and even sharing your faith. Oh, brother so-and-so, can we go and share your faith? Niko na kazi hapo boss aliniachia, and that is the story. Monday to Friday. Kazi. Or maybe it's the environment that we live in, a very anti-God, anti-faith environment. And when I say that, I remember, for example, mtu kama ni Kielo ama ni Chalo mwende. Which is which? And La Patrona. Sometimes I read their post, and they are very not nice about Christianity. They are not. And sometimes they have a good reason. There is abuse in church. We have the likes of our very own beloved president coming holding the Bible, but 2 years down the line. Nafani malizie. 2 years down the line, you know what we are going through. It also could be the strategy that the enemy is using to catch you is entertainment. I heard this joke some time back. People saying that you are going to get bored in heaven when we are singing for God. And I'm not saying that you're going to be singing. That's not my point. But the point is, so the person who is saying that, wakolizwa kwa nini, it's not entertaining. Kuimba forever. Like kuimba forever. So somebody is already thinking about how heaven will look like na vile hakutakuwa na entertainment. Because again, we live in a day of entertainment. On every side around us. Music, movies, social media, entertainment. So the enemy could get you, could interfere with your discipleship about your values. For example, through ungodly movies. Or maybe just evil and demonic music. Because I think I can say some of the music is just demonic. And sometimes it doesn't need to be very obvious. If probably you do a survey and ask maybe most of the Gen Zs, what do you think about lesbianism, LGBTQ? They are probably going to say, well, we cannot live our lives. But if you try to follow up where that is coming from, I tell you the truth, movies, music, but especially movies. And it's all over. So hata ukisema by the mimi kwa simu yangu na kwa laptop yangu niko clean, Super Metro Monday ukienda kazi. Inakungoja hivi. Na kama si wewe, it's mukienda gathering somewhere. End of year party, kazini. There are tactics all over. And so, what is your strategy? What is your strategy? It could be pain distracting you from knowing that you have been called to be formed, but also to form others. Or it could be just social media or work that leaves no room for anything else. What is your strategy against those things? Some of them are not devilish or evil, but the goal, well, because they are going to distract you from following and studying Jesus. Because remember, we need to spend time with Jesus so that we can learn to be like him. But if you never get time to study the Bible, how? Utajua aje? The sermon on Sunday is not enough. Easy 40 minutes. Nah, not enough, not enough. So what is your strategy? Please ask your neighbor, what is your strategy? What is your strategy? Now, it could be strategies to destroy intergenerational faith. Maybe it's just bad family ties with our children, because faith is discipleship is both for biological family, but also spiritual family. So people you are connected by blood, but also others you're not connected by blood. So what is your strategy for those bad ties? And I know most of us, sibling rivalry, ama sijui wewe na babako hamuongeangi, and so many other stories we can share. What is your strategy? Imagine you are raising a child and we live in a day of LGBTQ. So siku moja nakuja na kuambia, mama, mimi sitaki kukua, I don't want to be a man, I want to be a woman. Lakini ukiangalia hii kitu, nitango kafa ama nitango skwebe. If you look at it, inakuambia huyu ni mwanaume. Akona ndevu, zimejaa hapa, zinaweza piga zile za Pastor Njeru, compare. Lakini amekuja akakwambia mimi nataka kuwa mwanamke. And those things are happening, by the way. You see men huku in Africa, in Kenya, wako kwa simu hivi, anajichukua selfie. Mjamaa amejaza mandevu hapa, lakini anataka umaddress as a woman. What makes you think that is not going to be a child? Because if it's happening today, na huko nje, in Kiswahili, which I was teaching some time back, they say, ukiona kichwa cha mwenzako kinanyolewa. Yes, because it's possible. Anything is possible today. Anything is possible. It could be just issues of to do with faith. Mtoto nakuja na kuambia, so hii Bible mimi naona kama ni stories za jaba. You know why? Because New Testament iko na Jesus anasema we turn the other cheek. We forgive 70 times 7. Lakini mimi nikisoma Old Testament, God does not forgive. Because there is war after war after war. Some people will say it's ethnic cleansing. And so somebody will come and tell you, mama ama baba, hii faith yako ni ya uongo. Because mbona Bible inasema hivyo? Why is it contradicting? Ama mama, evolution inasema tulitoka kwa chimpanzees. Wewe unaniambia tulitoka kwa Adam 6,000 or so years ago. So are you saying that science is lying? And from science you get medicine and all that. You better be prepared because it might come. It might come. Huko nikiwa Githumu, I'm usually having so much to fight because they are teaching that in grade 7, social studies. They are teaching that. Maybe haijaklik bado, but wakienda campus, it will. It will. And they will see there's something hapa ingiani, and that's it. So you better be prepared. You better have a strategy to deal with that when it comes. Because you need to pass the faith. Like Paul said, like Jesus said, you receive faith and you pass it to others. You disciple others. You disciple your children. But how are you going to do it? When, for example, mtoto wako akikuja kuambie, mimi nataka nikuwe mwanaume, and then you feel offended, and that's it. You start telling them, you are not my child. Mimi na wewe, that's it. What is going to happen to them? What is going to happen to the faith that you have received, you have inherited? Itakatika hivyo. That discipleship needs to be continuous, and that means work. That means work. All, people, we are in those days where people say, all roads, they lead to Rome. There are many ways to kill a cat. So why are you saying that Jesus is the only way to heaven? Why? Hey, what? Some of those questions are the questions I get tukienda CU. God alitoka wapi? And why so you want to tell me that Buddhists do not believe in God? Kwani wanaamini nani? Watoto wa 12 years, 13 years, asking those questions. Now, you may feel like I'm being too foreign, so this is for you. We are sorted. So if you feel that me bado hujaguzwa, this is. So we have our very own African issue. We have the dictatorial parents. Or my way or the highway. That is on one hand. On the other hand, sisi ni last bonds. Hatufanyi nini? Hautushauti yangwi. What is going to happen between these two, and they cannot see eye to eye? Mtoto wako hapa, usinishautie. Mama naye ako hapa, ama baba ako hapa. My way? Aki utafanya nini? So is that relationship going to break and therefore break the faith? So strategies are there and they are working to break the faith in our families, in our own lives. There are bad theologies around. So if it is not the strategies to ruin your discipleship, it is those that are meant to destroy your relationship with God. Because if you believe in bad theologies, you have a bad picture of God. So your expectations are wrong about God. And then you are going to get hurt. And then the conclusion is, God is not real. And if it's not that, it is strategies to destroy your fellowship with God's people. Haziishi, by the way, haziishi. They are all over. They are all over. So what is your strategy then to counter that? What is your strategy? Because of time, let's go to point number 2, and I'm going to be very quick. Point number 2, recognizing that there is a place for all of us in God's kingdom. Recognizing that there is a place for all of us in God's kingdom. We all have a part to play in the mission. And we see that in Exodus 2 from verse 1 to 9. Because of time, I won't read. But this is where we see the plan to save Moses. So God has a seed. The seed is Israel. Israel needs to be saved. And for them to be saved, we need a savior, Moses. But Moses is being born in a time where men, boys, they are being killed. So how is God going to save the savior of his people? He is going to use many people. And discipleship is for everyone. It is for everyone. This thing we are calling discipleship, it is for everyone. So nobody is exempted from God's plan. Nobody. We see parents, 𝐂𝐸𝐞𝐫𝐢𝐞𝐬 and Amram. They have a role to play. They have a role to play. We see siblings, Miriam. There's a role to play. There is a role to play. Remember this discipleship. Kama mtu amekufa, we won't have nobody to disciple. So Moses has to be saved. Moses has to be saved. And this is something that Miriam needs to do. So just think about maybe the way we talk about sibling rivalry. No more. So if they are no more, which means then we have a problematic relationship, how are you going to pass the faith to them? How? There is a place for the royalty, the advantaged, the privileged, the working class. There is a place for them. We have Pua and Shifra. We have Pharaoh's daughter. Pharaoh's daughter is, she's right at the heart of the belly, at the belly of the problem. The killing machine. His dad is the person who is ordering death. So it is not just anything that Pharaoh's daughter is deciding to, you know what, I will save this boy. It is going against the command of the king. It is going against the command of a king who is also a God, remember? Yes, her father. So it is not without risk. The same case for Amram and 𝐂𝐸𝐞𝐫𝐢𝐞𝐬. I know a few things about babies, and one of them is they cry like crazy. Nduru moja tu hivyo, a whole block inaamuka usiku wa manane. How are they hiding him? And where? How? 3 months. 3 months. Remember, these are slaves. So mchana wako kazini. At least Amram, I'm sure, ako kazini. How are they managing that? Risk. Strategy. Pua and Shifra. It's possible they were Hebrew women. We don't know. It's possible there were Egyptians who had come to know about the Yahweh through interactions with Israelites. And we have been talking about how the people are 2 million. Do you think 2 million, 2 people, 2 midwives can serve 2 million people? So it's possible that they were working with others. In fact, it's possible that there were the bosses and there were several midwives up. And suddenly that becomes very complicated because everybody knows what Pharaoh said. And then the bosses decide, nah, we are not going to obey. What do you think is going to happen here? Imagine kuna kamoshene kamoja hapo kwa hao juniors. Hiyo kitu imeshaisha. But still, we are not going to kill these boys because we fear God. There is a place for everyone, and it doesn't matter where you are. There is a place. Even here in church, there is a place for you. Explore is not going to grow alone. God is not going to explore in heaven. It is here, and it's people who are down here. What role are you playing? The other day we were talked about the Discipleship Hub. Who do you think is going to be teaching there? If not you. Are you preparing for that? Because we need to be discipled right now and work on our discipleship right now so that in 2 years' time, when the discipleship hub is up and running, we are ready. We are equipped so that we can teach, we can disciple others. There is a place for everyone. So what do you think is your place? And are you building yourself? for that. And of course, when we think that everybody is supposed to disciple, because remember the command, everybody who is a disciple, you are to go and you make disciples. That is a command. There is no exemption. There is no exemption that, oh, mimi sijui kuongea, oh, mimi sijui. There is no exemption. Are you a follower of Jesus? Are you a disciple of Jesus? It is twofold. You are being discipled as. So are you living in disobedience? Who are you discipling? Who are you discipling? Of course, knowing that everybody is involved can leave us with a feeling of, where? Me. And the way I am, you can fill the blank. It may feel like God's kingdom is a conference, from the creation of the world, where everybody who is flawed and weak, everybody comes with their wrong, their weakness, and so it's a gathering of very flawed people. On one hand, yes, it is that. And this is why point number 3 is important. Point number 3 is coming because there is this thing that is called priesthood of all believers. We find that in Peter. Everybody has been called to become a priest. In fact, in Explore, now because you've been doing this, in Explore Module 1, Unit 4 is called nationhood. This is where God makes the nation of Israel a nation on Mount Sinai. In Exodus 19. And he tells them that you are going to be my special people, a royal priesthood. You are going to be a very special people for me in the entire earth. And Peter repeats the same thing. You have become a royal priesthood for God. Everyone. You are a believer, then you are a priest before God. And what is the work of the priest? You mediate between God and man. You bring God to man. You bring God to others. And sometimes that can be overwhelming. It may leave you feeling like, oh, I don't know how to talk. Well, this is very important. Recognizing God's sovereignty in the circumstances surrounding his mission. Recognizing God's sovereignty in the circumstances surrounding his mission. And we see this in Exodus 4. Maybe you can read Exodus 4, verse 10 to 12. Exodus 4, 10 to 12. But Moses said to the Lord, oh my Lord, I am not eloquent, either in the past or since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and of tongue. And the Lord said to him, Yahweh said to him, who has made man's mouth? Who has made? See, it's not who has made human being. Who has made man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, Yahweh? Now therefore go, and I'll be with your what? And teach you what you shall speak. When God is commissioning the prophets, Akina Jeremiah, for example, he's telling him that the people, they are going to try to come attack you. I will be with you. He in fact says that I'll make you like, I think, a bronze wall. You'll be like iron. But here, Moses, I'll be with your mouth. Yani Moses amesumbua God mpaka imefika place, and then God is like, you know what? I know the weakness because I am the one who is in fact in charge, and I'll be with that mouth. So enter. I am with that mouth. So I don't know what your excuse is. Mentally, knowledge. I am supposed to be a disciple, discipling others. But what excuse do you usually give? Now, it's possible that Moses, so of course here he's saying that he's slow of tongue. It's possible that maybe for 40 years hajakuwa na mtu wa kuongelesha. So yeah, or he has not spoken the specific dialect. Maybe Israelite amekuwa akiongea na huko sijui gani hata. Yeah. And so I'm a grow rusty kidogo. Because like for me, nikienda home Christmas, I've been here, I'm fluent in English, I've been speaking in English, and then imeenda siku ya kwanza mtu nikiongelesha mtu hivi anaweza fikiri mpaka najifanya, because Kikuyu yangu imepigwa brush, it's very western. Ni ile wenye nasema ngani ya kutweng akina sikupenda and that is 1 year, miaka 40. What do you think would have been happening? For you, it may not be that. It could be maybe, there's some people who, I don't know how to say that. So there are some people, maybe when you smile, it's possible when you smile, you'll be more distracting than, okay, people will be, people may feel more distracted than, okay, there are people who feel that way about themselves. If I smile, I'll be more distracting than making people feel comfortable and warm. And so because of that, unasema, siwezi simama mbele ya watu kuongea neno la God, ama I cannot share the word with anybody. Ama my voice sounds weird. Okay, I don't know how many of you have struggled with that. Unafanya ka recording hivi and you're like, Kai, huoni ina sound hivyo, eh? Then you're like, okay, mimi sitaiongea kanisa. Ama mimi, siwezi enda, siwezi. Tukienda mission ya Keno, siwezi kuwa ati ni mimi naenda kuinterpret. Siwezi. Because I feel like I sound weird. Or whichever excuse you have. It could be serious. Some of them could be things that we can work on. And if there are those, work on them. So that then there is not going to be any distraction as you are going to meet strangers. So that they can feel comfortable around you. So that you can share God's word with them. Because discipling starts right there. It needs to start with conversion, and then you can now walk with that person. You can help, you can train them in righteousness so that they can become God's people. So we have to take care of both. It is not just teaching people we are familiar with. It is also approaching people we don't know. So if there is something you can do about the hair or the face, so kama makeup, do itafanya fanya. But what you cannot change, yes. So that aspect of God saying that I am the one who made your mouth, it should be an encouragement, because it means that he is not only aware, he is responsible, he is the one. So regardless of how things look like, he is aware, he knows it, and he has still given you the charge to go and disciple. Moses here is saying that I know you have given me a call, but I don't want to go because I am slow of tongue. Ni God amefanya huo ulimi ukue hivyo. Ni God ametuumba in such a way that if you don't practice, you are going to forget. And still he tells us, go and make the disciples. Go and do what you need to do. Go and respond to your calling. And so this is an encouragement to us. When we are told that on the last Wednesday of the month, we are going there to speak to strangers, and you are coming up with, the reason why I cannot go is because, nakuanga hivi, ama nafanyanga hivi, ama sijui, I don't know how to talk to strangers, ni sawa. But you need to go. Thing is, you need to go. Kama ni kitu unaweza fanyia kazi, fanya. If you forget when speaking to new people, tafuta notebook. But kama ni kitu huwezi fanya anything about, trust this. God who has made man's mouth, and he is with you. He is with you. Sometimes like for me, for example, I will struggle with fear. Like I was saying, I do see you. And I don't even know what I've achieved in the last 1.5 years. I don't. Sometimes they will sing 6 songs in 10 minutes. Mtu wa kwanza, the soloist, anaongoza song ya kwanza na ya pili. Somebody in the congregation anaanzia ya 3. And I've been singing the song like, let's not do this. Let's get somebody who is leading us. And then when you are leading us, it's not about, kwani wanasikia? Last Monday, I had a very heavy heart. I had to tell grade 9 not to come because some of them wakikuja, I'm here trying to explain John 1. Aki unaona mwingine. So unasikia, teacher, kuna mtu ananichuna. Mwingine anasema, teacher, mimi sijui ni nani ananirushia mahindi na tuko see you by the way. So last Monday I'm leading in a song, and I've told them, just close your eyes, let's worship God. And I have my eyes closed. I have to lead by example. But of course, not very closed. You are dealing with teenagers. And as I'm doing that, there is a group of 3 boys here. Mmoja anaekelea hao wengine wawili mikono. Huyo mwingine naye anafanya hivyo. Then kuna huyo mwingine naye anafanya the same thing. And me, I'm here. We are trying to sing. And then every other student now is distracted. They are looking at that. Wengine tukiomba, hata si mimi kuhubiri, tukiomba. Sijui napeana moshene gani yenye haizi ngoja maombi ya 1 minute. Sometimes I'm trying to speak, I'm fluent in English, Kiswahili ni ngori, Kikuyu ni ngori. And I'm there, I'm trying, nachanganya words. But then anaona tu ameniangalia hivi. And then unawauliza, what have you learned? Unasikia vitu mpaka zenye, you are very sure sijaongea kitu kama hiyo leo. So ni vitu zenye walisoma klasi ya CRE, ndo anakuambia hapo. Ama unasikia zingine ni like, kai, so ulielewa hiyo hivyo? So I'm there, I don't know. And sometimes it's discouraging because you're like, so what am I doing here? 40 minutes, you have been trying to speak. You have been trying to say something. And then unauliza haya. In the usual, as the teacher has to show. So tell me, what have you learned today? But still, that is the work. Because somebody needs to show those children the way of God. And if not me, who? So even if I don't speak their language, because mimi, by the way, who are tuelewani, I still try. Because I think that is why I'm there. For whichever period. So that at least maybe if we have been there and I've walked with the students from grade 7 to grade 9, at least atatoka vile aliingia, they will have learned something. But they forget quickly, so I have to keep repeating. But that is the work. It is difficult work. Jesus told the disciples, come, I'll make you fishers of men. He's telling them you are going to be fishers of men. Fishing, it is not something that unaenda unarusha hook, si kwa pod, where the fish zote ziko hapo. No, it's in the sea. So ni unaenda hapo, it's training work. Unaenda unaacha neti yako hapo. There's this time that Peter, a whole night, nothing, like zero, a whole night toiling. So why was Jesus saying that I'm going to teach you to become fishers of men? If fishing is this hard? Point number 4. God is sovereign. So point number 1, we need a strategy. Point number 2, everybody is involved. That is why you need a strategy. Do not fear, because God is sovereign. Point number 4, recognizing God still holds us responsible. Recognizing that God still holds us responsible. He expects obedience. And you can go and read Exodus 4, verse 24 to 26. This is the time that God amemalizana na Moses huko Midian, wakaachana, and then Moses is on the way back. And God meets him and he wants to kill him. Why would God want to do that? And of course, there are so many things being told about what happened there. So Zipporah circumcises their son, and then he uses the foreskin to touch the feet of Moses, and then Moses is saved. Something very weird. And of course, the Bible is not so clear about what is happening, so I don't want to shout. There is that principle, don't shout where the Bible is whispering, so I'm going to whisper. And the whisper is this: it's possible that Moses had not circumcised his son. Actually, that is why it's a circumcision. You cannot be circumcised twice, at least I think, medically. So this son is not circumcised. And God, when he met Abraham, the sign of the covenant in Genesis 17, you and every male, you are going to be circumcised. And anybody who is not, they are going to be cut away. So Moses is to be the leader, leading God's people who are supposed to be circumcised, bearing the mark of the covenant in their bodies. But his very son is not circumcised. And God said that whoever is not, I'm going to cast them out. It is okay. I don't know what you get from that, but as far as discipleship is concerned, God expects obedience in the big things and the small things. Moses has answered the call, maybe big thing, but also the small things. Also the small things. So it is being nice to the strangers when you're doing your business. Oh, karibu. It's so good to have you, but then unarudi kwa nyumba umenunia bibi yako ama watoto. Hata hutaki kuwaona. So people out there can see, the way Jesus said, you shall be known that you are my disciples if you love one another. Because you want to love the strangers, that's why you are kind to them. But kwa sababu umekosana na bibi yako asubuhi. Kwa sababu umekosana. Ama kwa sababu umekosana sijui na nani. Whether you are a student, mwenye huwa mnakalishana naye class. Ni vile tu hauna ruhusa, otherwise kidogo mchome kisu. Or you call them whichever nasty name you can think about. So God expects obedience in the big things, like responding to the call, but also in the small things. When you are alone, hidden, do you do the things that you're supposed to do, that will make sure that you are being formed, you are being discipled, is taking place? Are you obedient in those small things, the things that nobody sees? Because you live alone, do you do the things, do you practice the spiritual disciplines that cultivate your discipleship when you are alone? Are you always waiting for the pastor to tell you, so we are going to study this, can you go and do that during the week? Are you waiting for that? Are you waiting for Sunday morning to be reminded, oh, you are a believer, you need to pray to God, to your Father in heaven? Are you always waiting for that to be reminded when you come here on Sunday? Do you do that when you are alone? Because again, how are we going to know this man if we don't spend time with him? Do you read your Bible when you are alone? So God has to confront Moses, because before he can use Moses to go and confront the religious system of Egypt, he has to be confronted. You have been called for discipleship. So make sure that before you go to disciple others, you yourselves are being discipled. And this is especially important because sometimes we may hear God's word and feel like, iyo ni anani. Iyo. Hey, before you run so quickly, at hiyo ni anani. Check your heart. Check your heart. Check your heart. And the last one, we must know how to work through suffering. We must know how to work through suffering. Because discipleship is often going to be forged in fires of trial. So we have to know how to be. How are we going to face suffering when it comes in our path? I'm going to try and read this one. If one treated the book of Exodus like a movie, there would be so many scenes of suffering, pain, trials, and serious conflicts. In it, we find political oppression, Exodus 1, ethnic rivalries, or maybe you can call them tribal clashes, military showdowns, they are going down, and supernatural confrontations, all of them affecting real people. By the way, they are affecting real people. They are not just a story. Real people. As Exodus opens, we find generations have been brutally oppressed in hard labor. This is as brutal as the slavery we talk about in a few centuries of the blacks. Tyrants are demanding brutal murder of newborn boys as soon as they are born through the hands of the very people who should ensure their survival. Ni kama wewe uende hospitali kudeliver mtoto. You take 24 or 36 hours of intense pain, struggle. I had Stella when she, the very first Sunday that she came after Zani, and she was there, and then she was saying it was a matter of life and death. Like you are not sure how it's going to. And then after after that, the baby is supposed to be delivered to River Nile. After the intense struggle, which was a matter of life and death, and then you go and kill the baby. I mean, and then when the killing doesn't work, the tyrants, they command the entire nation to throw Hebrew boys, the newborns, into Nile. Imagine the horror of watching your boy get thrown into the river after a harrowing pregnancy of 9 months amidst great hardship, hunger, and tormenting sun. Every day, going to kutafuta. So I imagine that the men are baking the bricks, the women are out there looking for the straw. 9 months working. And then you... So imagine an Egyptian woman who has been friends with a Hebrew girl. So they have grown being friends. And now as women, they have to comply with the political edicts by betraying their friend. Or imagine going to the river in the morning to get drinking water with your pitcher, with your bucket. And what do you draw out? Not a live baby. Imagine you are Moses, you have come to Pharaoh with 3 signs. Yani uko na 1, 2, 3, bulletproof. With 3 signs to show you are from a superior supernatural power. So unakuja hata na confidence, commanding. God amesema. But he shuts you down and rejects your very initial, your opening statement. Even before you get the chance to show the signs, you are shut down. In fact, instead of bringing relief like you hoped, the people only get more burdens, and they are happy to blame it on you. They are so happy. They are very happy. Before you saw Pharaoh, you had performed the signs before Israel, and they believed. They did. Your hopes were very high. The people believed, Pharaoh lazima. Days after seeing Pharaoh, Israelites and their leaders are so bitter at you for their added sorrow. Think together with me. Where is Moses staying all these times? All this time. Where is he staying? As these troubles are happening. Where do you think he's staying? Is he staying with the people of Israel? Is he hearing watoto wakienda kucheza kati? And then anahia moshene vijana. Jana babangu na mamangu na aunti yangu na grandmother walikuwa nasema hivi kuhusu Moses. Vijana. Do you think he's hearing that? So imagine gaining the courage to stand before Pharaoh again after all that. With your elder brother, fully aware of how negative the results were during the last confrontation. In fact, it was so vivid, so overwhelming, that you couldn't help accuse Yahweh, who sent you. You accused him of causing trouble instead of keeping his promise. You do the first sign. Sijui hope levels sahi imefika wapi. Magicians were Egypt. The members of the Egyptian Ministry of Mystic Arts wako hapo. Wanaandamana na wewe hivyo. They replicate what you do. You have seen the Nile turn to blood. Frogs have swarmed Egyptian kitchens. Dust have become lice. Flies have covered the land in a dark buzz. Every livestock has dropped dead. Hail has ripped trees and houses, but nothing has ripped Pharaoh's heart. Nothing. Before your very eyes, you have seen that his heart has hardened instead of breaking with the plagues. So much so that you have watched a dictator refuse to listen to men and God alike. And you are caught in the crossfire. Unaenda unasikiza God, unakuja unaambia Pharaoh. And the people are suffering. and they are accusing you, Egyptians and Israelites. Walikuwa nakujua before we went to Midian for 40 years, so they still remember. You used to play with them. After death, in the entire land, freedom comes, but it's freedom and flight. The entire nation is pushing you out. The chaos are unbelievable. Decades of slavery and exhaustion is now shouts and tears of joy, but not for long. Before panic strikes in the dead of the night, and you have 2 million people. Pharaoh has decided that, hamuendi by the way, munarudi. The people see their taskmasters, their former taskmasters and oppressors, and they start to tremble. They start to panic. Who are they? Who are they expressing their fear, their confusions, and some of them their curses too? It's you, Moses. It's you, the discipler. It's you. Because as you are discipling, you are getting immersed in the life of person, and you are helping them navigate life. Na wakati mwingine life is tricky, it doesn't work, and they come back to you. So it is starting to dawn on you. It is starting to dawn on you that this is leadership. This is what discipleship looks like. This is how leading others to Christ, helping others grow in Christ. That is how it looks like. It is rarely glory. It is often more pain and rejection. It is intercession. It is intercession. It is working through pain, uncertainties, suffering, lack, confusion, and all the eventualities of life as you lead people to become image bearers of Christ. It is that. You realize that you can't escape suffering. You can't. In fact, you realize that you have grown as you have been enduring all this. God has been working on you, forming you, so that you can form God's people. He has been conforming you to the image of His Son. And now you trust God more. And because you trust God more, you pray. You are going to pray. You are going to rely more on His wisdom and leading than before. You care more about pleasing God and not to the people. You go to Him. The first time that Moses comes to Pharaoh and things don't work, he goes to complain to God. He grumbles. He accuses God. You have cheated me. You did not keep your promise. In fact, things have only gotten worse. But in chapter 15, when they are there just before crossing the Red Sea, maybe we can read that as we close. 15, verse 22 to 25. Exodus 15 to 22 to 25. Then Moses made Israel set out from the Red Sea, and they went into the wilderness of Shur. They went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. When they came to Marah, they could not drink the water of Marah because it was bitter. Therefore, it was named Marah. And the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "What shall we drink?" And he cried to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a log. Now, go try to compare that and what happened in Exodus 5, 22 to 23, in your own time. By now, because of what Moses has seen, he has learned to work through suffering. And so this time he turns to God, not to grumble, but to pray. He has learned to work through the suffering and trust God more and grow. He has learned to be like Jesus, who when faced with trials, he did not go to escape. He did not go to escape. Hakuenda kuwatch movie, ndio sahau, ama kukunywa, ama kujidistract. He went before God to pray. And that is growth. That is discipleship. That is discipleship. And so we learn that we can't escape from pain. So we have to theologize how we are going to still trust God's faithfulness and goodness. But also how we are going to overcome trials. How we are going to overcome trials, knowing that we can't do it alone. I thank God that Moses was not alone. Zipporah was close. Because otherwise, what do you think would have happened? Community, right there. The place of community in discipleship. You don't disciple alone. But you can't also be discipled alone. You can't be discipled alone. Yeah, and so those are the things that I have picked. Of course, I have tried to skim because, well, yeah, it was too much. Yeah, but thank you. Thank you for listening. It's my hope that we can continue thinking about these things. Because at the end of the day, when we stand before God, He will, the fruit that we are going to present before Him. What fruit are you going to present before Him? Are you, how is your discipleship? How does it look like? Who are you discipling? How are you discipling them? We need to think these things. And the book of Exodus has a lot that we can learn. Hapa tumefika tu chapter 5. Na sahi tuko chapter 18. So you can imagine what is happening from chapter 6 all the way. There is a lot that we can learn. And so I would encourage you, go read again, and continue in this journey of becoming disciples who are being discipled and who are discipling others. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and for trusting me with that. Thank you.